Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Thursday, September 25th, 2025, and I've got a show note for the next couple of days. I've been called away. I have to do some work, and so I have to go stay in a hotel. And when you stay in hotels, the internet can be kind of dicey. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes I've been in situations where they really limit the upload speed. I've been in situations where the Wi-Fi is nearly unworkable, and even just using Twitter in the usual way or X in the usual way that I do is impossible on their Wi-Fi. So I don't know what kind of hotel I'm getting into, and so apologies that a bit short notice, but I am going to be away from tomorrow and then till Sunday, I guess. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do I don't even think I'll be able to do the kitchen table talk. And I know I apologize, everyone. I'd like to maybe make it up if we can, but I don't know a good date to make it up. So we may just have to wait till next Sunday. But apologies about that. But I have to go. So things in life come up, and I just have to deal with them. So we got to roll with it. So apologies about that, but it is unavoidable. So here we are. U.S. government shutdown on the horizon. The Democrats are trying to bully Trump into allowing them to have NPR funding, and even the Trump administration has rehired a bunch of people that were fired under the Doge initiatives. So I find that all very, very interesting and concerning too. So what's going on there? I often wonder, who's in control, and that's nothing new. I'm still wondering who's really in control. Trump says one thing, but then the opposite happens, right? Oh, we're going to have Elon Musk in here, and he's going to do Doge things, and we're going to save so much money, and then quietly rehires them all. Is that Trump losing control of his administration, or is that something else? And if it is, ultimately, Trump goes by Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and you blame the general. That's just what it is, right? And so it's his fault one way or the other. So what's going on there? Ostrich farm update, and we'll start there. They got to stay, but I think we're being played. I think that there's more to this. I think the public outcry was so much that they couldn't ignore it. And if they killed those birds, then I think the backlash would be quite a lot. I think that there would be a huge backlash. So what are they going to do? They're going to drag this out a little ways. They're going to give it a couple of weeks. They're going to let people cool down. Poilievre still isn't going to say anything. And then they're going to go forward with their plan. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope that the Supreme Court comes in and says, you can't kill these birds. But man, I think that the Supreme Court is as crooked as the House of Commons. And I don't have a very high opinion of the House of Commons. So fingers crossed that I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Ford government is going to get rid of speed cameras across Ontario. And that's great news. I'm happy about that because I feel like the municipalities are overreaching. These speed cameras are just a way to steal money from citizens. It's a form of taxation. It's not actually, I don't think that it helps. And I'm sick and tired of having all these 40-kilometer-an-hour speed signs put up. And the implication is they're going to back those all up with speed cameras. All of them. The whole province is going to be lined with speed cameras. And if you go more than 40 kilometers an hour, buddy, you're paying through the nose. And no, I'm not down with that. And so I'm glad Ford's taking a stand about this. And there are people out there who are saying, hey, won't somebody please think about the children? And man, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. We got to talk about a two-tier justice system. The JCCF is filing a brief in King's Bench, Winnipeg, to challenge Springfield's prohibition on recording in public for public meetings and things like that. And emission cap policy fallout. So yesterday I reported that the current government is upholding the Trudeau era emissions cap. And what's that going to cost us? Well, more billions of dollars. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We've got to start with ostriches. And here is Mark Nixon. He says, breaking: the ostrich farm massacre has been stopped temporarily. The case is headed to the Supreme Court. This is massive news. Today is a great day for Canada. Here's the moment the news broke. So this guy's talking about stuff, and then they get their stay and they run and announce it. So here we go.
That we use as a prayer, as a blessing on a lot of things.
So they got it, and everybody's very excited, and I'm glad. But again, I'm glad that the ostriches aren't dead. Obviously very glad that the ostriches aren't dead. I just feel like we've been so abused by everything that's happened. The washing machine that we've been in for the last couple of years, even a win, I'm suspicious of. I'm like, they're playing us. They're playing us. They're going to come back. I feel like the judiciary, the Supreme Court, is going to stand by the CIF, the agency that's come in to kill the birds. Malkin says, victory, at least for now. The Supreme Court ordered a stay against the federal ostrich cull in Edgewood. These beautiful creatures are alive today because ordinary Canadians fought back against this act of government overreach and animal cruelty. Thank you to every single person who protested, prayed, and spoke out. So people are happy about that. Right Blend says, the stay is temporary while the Supreme Court decides whether or not to take the ostrich farm case. In the meantime, the farm does not have the ownership of the birds and cannot feed them or care for them. The CFIA and authorities are not removing their hay contraption or equipment. Now is the time for MPs to speak out. History will remember you and how you respond to this cruel injustice. Thank you, Viva Fry, for posting the order. So Viva Fry had the order, and he says, this is the order. It's an interim stay pending determination of whether or not the Supreme Court takes up the case. So for the intermediate but not distant future, CFIA remains in custody of the birds, so not sure how they're going to be fed or maintained. Keep the pressure on. Heck, maybe now Pierre Poilievre and his CPC are going to chime in, since he might think he has public support and the support of the courts, right? So got to see which way the wind blows before you weigh in, right, Mr. Poilievre? And Viva Fry is really taking the conservative government to task, or the conservative party to task. He says not addressing the ostrich crisis is injury itself, and he's responding to Poilievre, who's not talking about the ostriches, notably. He says to systemically and deliberately ignore every ratio and top-rated comment calling him out for ignoring the ostrich crisis is insult to injury. Congrats, Pierre Poilievre. You have successfully screwed up to the point where I don't think you can potentially recover from this. How dare you ignore the ostriches? Ignore Canadians, fine, but how dare you ignore the ostriches? Ostrichgate is real. What took down Pierre Poilievre? Ostriches. So Canadian politics is weird. Who says it's not fun? Right Blend says, conservative Mel Arnold. So we've got a conservative speaking out. It's not Poilievre, but it's a conservative, so that's something. Mel Arnold stood in the House of Commons and spoke out for the ostriches. In response, the Liberal Minister of Health said they're following the case closely but can't comment because it's in front of the courts. They could end this sham today, actually. Speaking out works. But massive public pressure where everybody knows about the ostriches works. I don't know that speaking out works, because a lot of the time you just get silenced if you speak out, or if you say boys shouldn't be able to access girls' bathrooms in high schools, you get ignored by the education minister. You get ignored by the people who are supposed to do something about this egregious violation of good sense. It's unbelievable. Arthur Pulowski is highlighting what's going on as well. There's memes going around about the ostriches. We are healthy. Test us. Don't kill us. And then there's images of police in hazmat suits, but it's not real hazmat suits. It's just like white jumpsuits. So I don't believe that these are hazmats. I've seen Outbreak, man, right? Like, that's not what these guys were in. Police vehicles and things, and then a whole bunch of police. What is this? 15 police. There's 5. There's 10, 12 police in the picture there. 13 if you count the half police officer standing there. So yeah, there's a lot of police presence at this ostrich farm. It's an ostrich farm, for crying out loud, you know? Here's Right Blend, and he says, a truck carrying blue privacy fencing has arrived at the BC ostrich farm. It seems police are doing everything possible to prevent cameras from being able to record what they are so desperate to do. Immediately after reporting this, Jim Kerr was detained by the RCMP. So the guy who's reporting about the privacy fence coming in, he was detained. How much does all this cost, right? Like, if you were to call up somebody who supplies however much privacy fence you'd need to enclose an ostrich farm, right? I don't know how many yards of fencing you'd need. I don't know if fencing is measured in yards, right? I have no idea. But that's probably pretty expensive. Like, this truck's fuel is more expensive than most people are comfortable with, right? So they got to cover that fuel cost in order to deliver this load here. And so that's an expensive load. And so it's costly. You and me get to pay for that, because this is an operation to protect us from the danger of the bird flu that the ostriches have for some reason. And ostriches don't get flu. I'm sorry. The ostriches don't suffer flu. Flu's a human thing. We get flu. Bird flu? Nah. And if birds did get flu, can you imagine if we're like, oh man, you know, somebody got the flu, right? Oh, did they have to die? Like, right? Like, couldn't they get better? Right? If they got the flu and got better, wouldn't that mean we don't have to kill them all? Why do we have to kill all of the animals that have any kind of illness? Seems like a drastic response, really. Here's Right Blend again. He says, protesters accuse the RCMP of terrorizing the ostriches with lights and drones at the BC ostrich farm overnight. Multiple police cars are lighting up the area while police drones circle above. CFIA agents wearing hazmat costumes took down the farm's cameras in the pen yesterday, limiting everyone's ability to watch what's happening to the animals. So the animals are, there's no cameras, and you just have to trust that the police officers are taking good care of the ostriches. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? Why would you have the police officers care for the ostriches? Why would the court order the ostriches stay in the care of the police officers? Wouldn't the police officers not have much experience in ostrich rearing? If you were a police officer and they said, okay, your job is to take care of these. Have you seen the dirty jobs with the ostriches? They said, like, basically those things will kill you if they kick you in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like you could really get hurt here. And then you have to like take a hand sock and like grab it by the beak and then put the hand hood sock over, like the sock over its head. So then you can kind of lead it around. But if you don't do that, man, it's a nightmare. And like, if we could live stream the cops trying to control these ostriches, like that might be a funny comedy show. But overall, it doesn't seem like good sense to put a bunch of police officers in charge of a bunch of ostriches and just, we'll see how it all works out. We'll see how it happens. This is the best we've got. CBC as well. I didn't even show this clip. CBC is basically saying, we don't know anything about what's gone on with these ostriches. All we know is that they were sick and they should probably die. And that's a weird position for the CBC to take unless they're a propaganda machine. And they are. That's what they are. Viva Fry says they don't know, so there's no point in doing research. They're killing the birds because they might get reinfected. Why not just kill all birds to prevent any from getting infected? Who is this hack? So it's kind of droney. It's kind of, all of these people are kind of monotone and lack personality. Here we go.
Breaks with what's called the stamping out policy or mandatory depopulation of flocks that have been infected. So this is
mandatory depopulation. Where have we heard that before? I'm sure it's come up somewhere. I just can't. This
is really both scientifically and legally, I think, the right thing to do to reduce the risk as much as we can.
Scientifically and legally, this is exactly right where we need to be. Definitely. I see nothing wrong at all with this.
Yeah, you're a leading expert in this field. You have no political agenda when it comes to analyzing science. So I want to put to you something we heard from the spokesperson for the farm, saying that these birds have been healthy for more than 200 days, that they're probably building immunity to avian flu, and therefore not only should they not be culled, but we should actually be preserving these ostriches. When you hear that, what's your reaction?
Well, my reaction to that is that it's not really accurate. So in ostriches, disease severity is based on how old the birds are, and these are all older birds. Older birds tend to not get very sick when they are infected with avian flu, at least in the few experiments that have been done with this and in our observations at different ostrich outbreaks. So you can't really tell if the ostriches are sick just by looking at them. You also can't make the assumption that they're going to develop protective immunity against a reinfection because often these older ostriches that don't get very sick don't develop antibodies against the virus. So we actually don't really know if these birds do have protective immunity if they had been infected before. We just have to assume that they could have been infected and they may still be infected.
All right. Well,
we have to assume that they could have been infected and that they may still be infected, and they don't get very sick because they're older and they don't make very many antibodies. And so we have to kill them. What? You just said they don't get very sick. Well, yeah, but I meant that we just have to kill them. Oh, okay. I don't follow the logic either. So weird. These people are naked propagandists. GM says, this is our grab bag of governance. And the order of things is kind of difficult to suss out some days. Some days I've got lots of leading stories that are kind of vying for the head of the pack. And then I try and smooth it out so it flows properly. So like we're going on a destination. But anyway, our grab bag of governance today is early, and GM Forbes is responding to the CBC talking about Mark Carney. And it says Carney says he has confidence in the public safety minister after calls for his resignation. So Gary Anasangri is under fire for his gun grab, and the gun grab is like supposed to be billed as a buyback program, but even he doesn't have any kind of faith in it. And the whole reason that they're doing this is because it's very, very important to the Quebec constituents. Without the gun grab, I guess they would lose Quebec seats. So that's weird. But that's the whole job of Gary. And Gary is going to continue to push this. And Carney says full support. We're going to allow Gary to keep going. We'll see where he's going with this. Looks like they're going to continue to get that 2030 agenda checked off. And GM Forbes says Carney also said he had confidence in the Liberal cabinet that encouraged people to, or the Liberal candidate that encouraged people to kidnap a CPC candidate and turn him over to Chinese authorities in Toronto to collect a bounty. So Mark Carney's judgment is suspect at best. At best. Jeffrey Rath is talking about Alberta, and he says Danielle Smith's Attorney General refuses to say that they will not prosecute people following the end of the so-called Liberal gun amnesty, only that such prosecutions will be a low priority. Please buy a UCP membership to come to UCP Annual General Meeting 2025 and tell Danielle Smith what you think of this lack of leadership. And so they're joking in the comments, they're joking about Danielle Smith wondering why the UCP is falling in the polls, but the membership is growing. And he says this is fundamentally why. And there's an Alberta, I'm just trying to move this here, take it out of there. Remove it from the group. There's an Alberta election coming up, and there's a new party, and I don't know what the party is, but it's called RPA, and it's got 11%, and it's sucking support from the UCP, and that's interesting. And the NDP is losing support too. The RPA is gaining support. And Peter says, imagine just how bad of an NDP leader Nenshi must be for the UCP to be losing 11% to their right, and yet the NDP are still getting clobbered. When Kenny was losing 10 to 12% to his right, Notley was leading the polls by 20%. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I find it very, very interesting that Danielle Smith, the last general meeting, the last UCP general meeting, Danielle Smith made a whole bunch of promises and bussed in some people, and that was uncomfortable. Like, that's a little bit weird, and people didn't talk about it very much, but it happened. Here is Doug Ford and his speed cameras, and City News is reporting the Ford government will introduce legislation on Thursday that will eliminate speed cameras in Ontario, City News has confirmed. Great. I think photo radar is bad. I think there's no reason to have photo radar. I think that pretending photo radar in school zones is for the public good is false, and it's misinformation put forward by people who view that money coming into their coffers as money to balance the budget. And it's just a tax on people who have to drive by speed cameras all the time. And it's not about safety. It's not about safety whatsoever. And so I'm glad. Good. Finally, something. Here is Jennifer L., and I've talked about her before. She is taking on the leadership of First Nations across Canada, and apparently in doing so, she's put a target on her back, which is not great, but not surprising either. So here is Jennifer, and she says, well, she explains the whole thing. Here we go.
What if I told you that the federal government in Canada has been sending hundreds of millions of dollars to an Indigenous self-governing body that is actively trying to prevent anyone from asking questions? And the reason I know this is because I am one of the people that they have threatened legally for raising concerns and asking questions. And what if I also told you that they used to have a former Liberal minister as a lobbyist that has allegedly been asked to put a target on my back with the Liberal government? Still waiting for clarification from that former Liberal on whether or not that happened, but anyway. And what if I also told you their chief operating officer was just named to the Prime Minister's Indigenous Advisory Council, and allegedly he called another Indigenous man in this province to tell him to stop sharing my posts, amongst other things? I'll let you guys sit with that, but what I've also been told is that allegedly it's been discussed, my name, multiple times, that this is a conservative plot, that I have been sent by the Conservatives in some capacity to do this, that I am paid for this advocacy. There's been a lot, but I don't need to be backed by anybody, nor am I a part of any plots. My voice is mine and mine only, and I do not take direction or payment from anyone on how to use it. But the last question I will leave you guys with, because again, this is all alleged, but no one has ever been able to refute it from their end, is what is on the other side of the curtain that people are going to this lengths to hide and prevent me from speaking on? Something to think about.
What are they trying to hide? Follow the money, I think, is another thing that you could potentially say. We're going to have to say goodbye to the stream soon, but I wanted to show you this. There's a doctor, engineer, I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't really tell from this camera angle, but some dude in Toronto putting together a gun, like a full stock long gun. And he's having a hard time putting that stock on there. Yeah, there we go. Got it. Oh, nope, didn't get it. No, I bet Noel is loving this. But people just, one of the craziest parts of this video is the number of people who walk by this guy and he's just casually putting a gun together and they just walk by. Nobody really looks. Nobody pays any attention whatsoever. If this was, what was the Andy Griffith show? What place was the Andy Griffith show recorded in? I can't remember. Something county. Even the Littlest Hobo. One of the premises of those kind of shows when I was growing up was that strangers had entered the town. Strangers had come and they're from another place and they might be bad guys. They might be trying to pass bad checks. They might be trying to do bad things. They might be trying to kidnap kids. In the 80s, that was a big deal. And so especially the Littlest Hobo, right? And so like this would not go unnoticed, right? Andy Griffith would show up and he'd be like, look at him. He's just hanging out with his gun, right? He's like, whoa, look at this gun. People are driving by. People are standing there waiting for the crosswalk. They don't think to themselves, what happens? Oh, you can't see the people waiting for the crosswalk. Hold on, I get my face out of the way here. You can see the people there, just waiting for the crosswalk right there. Can you imagine if this guy gets the gun and just starts firing? Like, we just walked by that guy, right? Like, it's wild, absolutely crazy. But now we live in a society where nobody's really looking at anybody at all, period. And that's kind of weird. It's a very strange situation. So crime, we're going to talk about crime now because crime and a two-tiered legal system, because if that was me standing in the middle of Toronto waving the barrel of a long gun about, people would show up. People would be like, hey, man, you're under arrest. And they wouldn't let me out on bail. They'd be like, no, you committed a dangerous act. You committed a very, very bad crime. You were waving a gun around. But this guy, somebody would show up and be like, listen, man, you're not allowed to have that. And then he'd be waved along on his way. And that's very concerning because I'm very confident that that's the way it would go. Anyway, we've got to say goodbye to the stream. There's lots more show. If you want the rest of the show, head over to CanadaPoly.com and you will be able to buy access there. But if not,